Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Bikini, me and the brain.
Clearly, Adam. I mean, clearly. Do you see my head? It's got to be twice the size.
It looks like that cartoon, Megamind? Megamind, that's what you look
Yes.
at. And you're in the same color, look at that.
Yep, there you go.
That's actually one of my favorite movies, because how Will Ferrell talks in it, he's like, popping corn. He's like, I was eating another thing of popping corn. It's so funny.
Oh my. I have not seen that movie.
Oh, really? Well, that doesn't surprise me because you never see movies.
I know. I'm kind of out of the movie culture.
You are, yeah. But if it's a makeup tutorial on YouTube,
Yep,
that's
I'm
your
all
go-to.
for that. Or
Or
documentaries, too.
or that guy who does the reviews on frozen food, frozen dinners.
The random sides of YouTube where you just stumble across something and you're like, this is interesting.
Still one of my favorite YouTube channels. That guy. What's it again? We said it once. The frozen food reviewer.
Moose something moose.
Something moose. Yeah,
something
hilarious.
Moose.
Great content. That guy.
Oh,
all right, so we had a great seminar this weekend.
Yes, oh my gosh. Thank you everyone who showed up at the seminar this weekend. That was so cool to see everyone, and it was nice to be a part of that and help out a little bit.
Yeah, so it was really cool because we didn't get to do anything big like that in 2020. And we had angel competition bikinis here, shoe fairy, muscle egg, and they all did their part. Angel competition bikini had a whole bunch of bikinis. Everyone was trying them on. We ended up having like 120 bikini competitors show up. Wow. So different times, of course, because of the COVID rules. But and then we had only like 15 men's physique guys show up, something like that. So men's physique guys are slacking. But we had some. You know what's cool though? It's different now because it's Vegas. So we had a lot of our Colorado people. So thank you guys from Colorado who came out. I really appreciate you guys coming out. Which seems to be a pretty easy flight for when people want to come out. But a lot of like new Vegas people, Vegas faces.
Yeah, and a lot of people drove from California too.
Yeah, which is cool because that was never a thing before, you know? And I saw some, you know what's cool is like the men's physique guys when you like I get to really like pose with them a lot too. So it's really fun. And I met a couple of them where like, they're just really, I don't know, they're really grateful to be able to pose here and like, going over their whole routine and stuff, and they really got like community based. It was really cool. The girls, it was a lot, so it wasn't as like niche, you know, it wasn't as tight. But the guys were like, we're all stopped and looking at each other and giving each other tips. It was just a really cool environment. It made me like, I was really excited to be about this season, you know? I was really excited about it, so.
It's very motivational for me because I like to see like people like do what they love, and it's nice to be able to help out and just be around the fitness people, so. I'm like all motivated now.
Good. So you guys are aware, Saturdays we're gonna do open gym for the public and open posing. I was planning on not doing open gym, but it looks like we won't get the numbers where I'm gonna get like, because the problem is we had the COVID shutdown stuff. It doesn't look like we're gonna get like 100 people to show up like I thought. So as of now, unless I change it, it's going to be open gym. Anyone can come work out 10 to 12 on Saturday. The gym is private the rest of the week, so no access unless you're part of the team. And then men's physique posing 11:30 to 12, bikini 12 to when it ends. Usually it's like an hour posing class, and it's free. There's no charge for anything. But shout out to Muscle Egg.
Muscle Egg! Big announcement, guys. Team Elite Physique is now officially working with Muscle Egg, which I'm going to give you a quick little description of what Muscle Egg is, and then we're going to tell you how to get a discount on it because this stuff's bomb.com.
Yeah.
So Muscle Egg is flavored liquid egg whites. But what makes these different from other egg whites is that these flavors are so unique. We're not talking about sour cream and chive or cheddar or something like that. No, these flavors are like desserts, like vanilla, cake batter, chocolate mocha, chocolate mint, strawberry, key lime pie, pumpkin spice, fruit cereal, and then original. And it's the only way I can eat egg whites or eggs because I hate savory eggs. I'm really weird. I hate savory eggs. I can't do it. Just like seafood. Ew, disgusting. But when I found Muscle Egg, I'm like, oh, this tastes like dessert. So I make my little Muscle Egg pancakes. Every day I have that for breakfast. It's so good. So good.
Yeah, you've been doing that for years too.
Years, yeah, literally years.
When I used to come out to see Ashley, now we lived in the same city, but when I used to come out to see her, she'd always have me like like 4 or 5 like cooked muscle eggs. What's funny is I give Anya crap about it now too. And I was like, I have muscle egg now. You know, when I used to come see Ashley, she used to always have like 5 like muscle egg things cooked for me, like trying to like get her to like make it work. She's like, you got me working too much. I don't have any time to cook for you. I was like, damn it. I tried.
Yes, you tried.
She does work a lot.
The good thing about muscle egg, though, is you don't necessarily have to eat it cooked, though, because it's pasteurized. So you can literally eat the egg whites out of the gallon.
Yeah.
Or in a blender, and you like to put it with your coffee.
I drink them raw. Yeah, I drink them.
And they have powder, too, so you've been using that with your coffee. But yeah, it's good stuff, guys. If you haven't already tried it, you need to. And we have a discount link for you if you want to try them at a 10% discount. Our gift from us to you. It's a muscleegg.com/Team Elite Physique, all lowercase, Team Elite Physique.
Yeah. So, So anyway, so thank you, Gary, very much for Muscle Egg. They've been treating us well, and Shoe Fairy course came out, which was really nice. They had, they all set up this whole thing. So
and photo shoot. We had a photo shoot.
Oh yeah, we got to talk about him too, because Tyler is going to be our like photographer at the Taylor. Sorry, Taylor. He's going to be our official photographer here. So I'll put his info on the website. But he's giving anyone who wants to come out a discount. But I have kind of strict photography rules, because the problem is like you get a center like ours, everyone thinks they could just show up and do video whenever they want. So I have the rules on that are going to be, it's only like 1 day a week where we have it. So it's going to be like Fridays or Saturdays after posing, where no one's here working out, because it interrupts sessions, And I only have one guy that I let. In Denver, it was Brett Seeley, and out here I think it's going to be Taylor. Or if Brett Seeley wants to come out, Brett can always come out. So. Yeah, so we're gonna have like one guy. So he'll be our go-to, but he's giving everyone a good price. I just got to figure out. But he already sent me the links. It's pretty cost-effective. So if you guys did a show, even if you're not on our team, if you guys did a show, if you're on a team, you're just looking good, and you want to do a photo shoot, like go to that website, contact that guy, and he'll set it up here. He'll have a key and all that.
Heck yeah! And we got cool lights.
Yeah, and we got cool
changing lights.
Changing color lights. So on this episode today, Ashley had a really good idea. Ashley runs all the ideas. She's the idea factory for these. But we wanted to talk about...
that's why they call me the brain, duh.
Yeah, duh, obviously. Clearly. And so what we wanted to go into was pre-prep. And, off-season to in-season. And I call that pre-prep. And it's something I talk about with a lot of, like, my athletes personally. But it's not something... I was like, when she was talking about it, I was like, you know what? I don't think I ever even really have talked about that publicly. Like, pre-prep. I don't even know if that's a word people use. It's something I call it. But pre-prep is a critical stage. And so I'm really happy we get to talk about it. But one of the main things I think that we really need to discuss with like the competitor is their mindset about this sport. And I think that you get a lot of disconnect between their goal and their like life mission type of scenario and their actions. And it's a strange thing, because like if I wanted to be the best baseball player, if I wanted to make Major League Baseball and I wanted to be a professional baseball player, I would live it every single day until I got there, every single day. But with prep, sometimes you run into people and they're like, oh, I'll contact you like 16 weeks out. I'll message you 16 weeks. When should I start like focusing on it? And I'm like, no, it's like any other sport. It is 24/7, 365. There's no days off if you're trying to get to that high level. Like that's just what it is. There's no way around that. You can't like just prep 16 weeks out of the year and be like, okay, I'm going to be a pro now. Like it doesn't work that way. And someone's going to pass you. So every stage matters. Your off season, you're doing lean gaining, focusing on your lagging body parts. Your off season to in season, like that 8 weeks going from off season to in season, is called pre-prep, where you're basically setting yourself up for a successful prep. And that's what we're kind of going to go into today. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's just one of the most overlooked things and the most overlooked one of the important things that people just don't really focus on. Yeah,
and that's the period of time that's going to set you up for a really smooth contest prep, in general, because it's nice to have that little bridge so it's not like all or nothing, or nothing to all, I should say. But it is nice to have that like little bridge that kind of gets you used to it, gets you in the swing of things, because I don't know about you, but I just feel like this sport in particular is so based on routine and habit. So, when I'm truly in the zone and 100% on contest prep, I have my routine. I wake up at this time, I eat this, I go do cardio, I come back, I take a shower, I go lift, I do, So it's like I have a certain schedule in my mind. Now that's the way I work, but I'm not sure if you are different than I, but I do feel like that is a very common occurrence, is very schedule a regimen.
Yeah.
All the time. And I find that when I break that, it just feels like a weird day. Like if for some reason I don't get to cardio in the morning when it's a cardio day and I'm running behind, the whole day feels weird to me.
Yeah.
It feels strange. It feels like, I don't know, I'm not as into it. I don't know.
No, I hear that. I think that is probably the most common thing in prep, is like people get with their routine. And I find that, what I find? I find that the dedicated people who are like really excelling at this have that kind of similar thing like all year. They don't like not being in a routine.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I see those people advance more than obviously everyone else. And so, I don't know, it seems to be like a recipe for success, getting that routine down. With pre-prep, I think it's like looking at everything in the full cycle of the prep. And you're like, okay, I'm going to prep at 16 weeks out, at 8 weeks out from the 16 weeks. I need to be eating this many calories. I need to be doing this much cardio. That way I'm set up for success during my prep. And like that, and be this body fat and be this whatever. Like it's an important stage to like look at, and most times people are just like, hey, can I make it in 12 weeks? Like, can I make it in 16 weeks? Like, it should be systemized. It should be looked at in terms of, okay, how much do you need to lose? Where are your calories at? Where's your cardio at? How's that going to look when you're 4 weeks out? Like, it should be a whole thing, and people kind of underestimate it. So I guess going into that, the purpose of the pre-prep would be to set up a good prep, to make it as realistic and as non-life like killing as possible, really. Because the problem is this, you'll run into people who don't know how to like off season very much. This is like the most common thing. People go in their off season, they pay no attention to their diet whatsoever. They put on 25 pounds, whatever, and then they're like, oh, I'm just one of those people. But realistically, they just didn't pay attention to their diet. Like that's 95% of people who say that. They're like, oh, I'm just one of those people. You'll see them at like an all-you-can-eat something or whatever, and they just like throw down. And they're like, no, I'm just one of those people that just can't be, 12 pounds above stage weight, 10 pounds above stage weight. I'm like, no. You are a little piggy in the off season and you blame that on anything else. You're just not paying attention to what you're eating. And you're just like saying that you naturally put on this much body fat. So no one naturally puts on body fat. You're consuming more calories than you burn. That's how you put on body fat. It's not like you just, I just woke up and I was fatter, by 25 pounds. Yeah, you ate like a little piggy, let's call it what it is, and you didn't move as much as you did when you were in prep. That's fine. So, all right, so you go from off season, then you go to your pre-prep. So how do you want to start your prep is basically your pre-prep, right? And here's the thing, if you're doing, let's say in your off season, you're just like, you're a cardio queen and you love doing cardio and you're like, hey, I just like doing cardio. It puts me at ease. I just like it. I want to do, 45 minutes every day. I just like it. It gets me moving, whatever. And you do 45 minutes every day, stair mill. And you're 8 weeks out from your 16-week prep, right? Well, you got to understand when you do that and you say, okay, hey coach, let's start our prep at 16 weeks out, your coach doesn't have an option of cardio under 45 minutes because that's your new baseline. So if you start off at 45 minutes of cardio, what's your coach going to do? You can't say, hey, okay, now you do 20 minutes and get more results because your baseline is 45, right? So you could increase the intensity and your coach can be like, okay, let's go to 25 minutes of HIIT versus 45 minutes of steady state. And that might create that difference of more intensity, more calories burned, whatever, but it's not the best starting point. The point of the pre-prep is to get everything set up for it. So your cardio should be as low as you can get it, while still maintaining health, of course, but as low as you can get it before you start prep. That way, when you start prep and you do 5 minutes of HIIT cardio, it's a stimulus to your body. Your body's like, man, you haven't been doing cardio at all. 5 minutes is extra than what I've been doing, right? And that's all bodybuilding is. It's creating a stimulus, adapting the stimulus, creating a new stimulus, adapting that new stimulus. That's what it is. So if your stimulus is 45 minutes of cardio as your baseline, well, now it takes 10% more. Well, now we're in week 1, we're at 50 minutes of cardio because that's your new baseline. So that's the only way you can create a stimulus. So you got to understand, you have to set yourself up for success, both by maintaining your body fat to somewhat realistic levels, and then by not doing so much in the off season. And what happens like every time in the off season? Every time someone blows up, what happens? Right? Like
it's harder to lose it.
Harder to lose it, and then
they can't focus as much as putting or keeping their muscle.
Yeah.
Because they're more putting their energy forth burning fat.
Exactly.
And it's, it's difficult because you do at some point it's like if you let yourself go too much, and I know because from experience, it's like you try so hard to lose fat, but if you lose fat too quickly, then you're kind of sacrificing muscle too. And then the component of like, what are you going to give more energy to? Because for example, one of the reasons why I don't like to do cardio on leg days is because I know leg day is intense. It's going to take up all my energy.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like whenever you're desperate to like burn fat, it's going to take a toll on your lifts too if you're focused more on cardio.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing too is that you're going to have here, I see what happens a lot too is that someone will go in their off season and then they'll like instantly put on 20 pounds in their first month. And instead of having like a long, successful off season where they barely put on any body fat, what happens is they instantly want to diet again. And so they only didn't diet for a month. So metabolically, they're not all the way corrected. Hormonally, they might not even be all the way corrected at that point. And then they instantly want to diet because now they feel fluffy, right? They hate what they look like. And they're like, and it's such a mental thing, right? It's like they were super happy the way they looked when they did the show or whatever. And so they remember that. And then a month later, they feel super fluffy and they're like, I just got to get it off me, got to get it off me, right? And then they don't correct their metabolism, and then they're already doing cardio, they're already dieting, and then they're like, oh, I want to do a show, and like I want to do that show, and like that's like 12 weeks out from whatever month. So their pre-prep was spent dieting off that bad month of gaining that they shouldn't have done, right? And so their pre-prep sets their coach up for failure because they're already dieting, they're already doing a lot of cardio because they're trying to get off that fat that they shouldn't have gained because they couldn't control their hand-to-mouth motion, right? So, so that's why it's so critical. And I'm always pounding that off season, but the pre-prep is just as critical because it sets you up for everything that's going to happen during prep. So, like, if you're working out 2-a-day workouts and you're like, I'm just going to crush it, like, you got to understand that we have to use whatever you're starting at as like the baseline to get more results. Otherwise, it's just calorie-based because the coach has like 4 options of creating a stimulus, and it's your cardio, it's your diet, it's your workout, and it's your supplements. Those 4 components are how the coach is going to design a program in a step basis to get you that result at the end of those 16 weeks, whatever it is. I like 16-week preps. So that's how they're going to. So they see it way ahead of schedule. You got to see it way ahead of schedule. So I like to have someone prep for I like to have someone prep for like 8 weeks. That's if they had a really good off season. Like they were doing really, really good. And then I'm like, hey, let's get you too lean. And then your peak week is going to be super easy. You're just going to have some more carbs and that's going to be it. I love getting people too lean, like 10 days out, 2 weeks out, and then like just feeding them.
It's a nice place to be.
It's great, yeah.
No cardio or minimal cardio and just kind of like ease into it with more food.
Yeah, it's a rare one. And then those peak weeks are like very similar from people. It's like, oh, you get 200 and she gets 250. Like it's like such an easy peak week. It's not stressful. They look vibrant on stage and rested and full, and we don't have to worry about it. And if they spill over a little bit, it's okay because they were too lean to begin with. So it's such a nice way to go into a show versus like cramming and like, okay, let's just see what you look like in 6 hours because we're gonna load a little bit of carbs. We want you to spill because you're so close and you're not lean enough. Like, so the pre-prep is where that happens. So I guess going into the pre-prep would be, one of the things is like systematically bringing your cardio down. So the goal in the off season should be to get your calories up as high as you can and your cardio as low as you can while maintaining body fat. So that's the key thing, while maintaining body fat or gaining minimal body fat off season. Like it shouldn't be this drastic change. And if you do that, then you can kind of systematically look at your preps and be like, okay, what do we need to do for this prep? How long should this prep be? And if your coach has worked with you like more than one show, he's like, let's say they're at like 3-4 shows in or something. Like with Ashley, I know her waistline, where it should be come stage time, right? Like we're shooting for somewhere in that 21.5 to 22 like waistline right in there, right? If Ashley's 24 and we are 8 weeks out, well, then it's simple. We need to lose a quarter of an inch a week. That's 8 weeks. So we're on pace. I don't want to be on pace. I want to be ahead of pace. I would like her to have 1.5 inches out on her waistline to go at 6 weeks out, because that's 6 weeks with maybe 2 or 8 weeks, but maybe 2 of those weeks we don't make any progress, which is realistic anyway. So that's kind of how you like want to time your preps, and that's how you get pre-prepped. Like you look at your 16 weeks out, you're like, okay, I'm 16 weeks out. I got 3 inches on my waistline until I get back to my original stage shape. So now I have 12 weeks to get there, but I have 12 weeks to get where it should take me if I nailed it, but I have 16 weeks just in case. And the good thing about that is if you set yourself up right, well then, and everything goes smoothly, which, it does sometimes, a good amount of times, if you had 12 weeks of prep and you're way ahead, well then your coach has the tool of saying, hey, let's just have a full week of you just reloading calories. Like cut your cardio, reload your calories, feel good. And then that next week after that, you just have awesome workouts, you make even more progress, and we don't worry about losing that week. We fully take advantage of it by reloading and having you feel good. So there's like so many things that happen within that pre-prep phase,
I think another great thing about the pre-prep phase is getting your mindset correct, because I don't know about our listeners out there, but when I'm full out prepping and it's kind of like abrupt, it's just like, okay, we're starting to prep now. It is kind of hard the first few weeks to even get into the mentality of what you're doing. Like, it's kind of like, oh, I don't want to eat the chicken and broccoli, oh, I don't want to wake up and do the cardio, But once you kind of create a habit and it becomes a schedule and a routine and your mindset is there, like, okay, we're doing this, it is so much easier to get all those things accomplished. Like, sometimes I say motivation and your mentality is the best pre-workout there is, because there'll be times like where I'm so motivated, I'm so focused, and I'm so in the zone that I could work out so hard twice a day or 3 if I really wanted to. Not that that's a common thing, but I'm just saying for the sake of argument. I could do all of this at 100% like it's nothing, and I love it and I want more of it. I'm like, yeah, I'm looking forward to the next one. Let's do this. It hurt, but I love it.
Yeah.
Whereas like when I'm just kind of getting into that prep phase, it's kind of like that dread, like, and my intensity won't even be as much as I would be in that 100% prep phase. But it's just like the thought of like, oh man, the dread is what brings it to be harder than what it is. So sometimes it's hard to gauge how intense I really am going because I'm like not in that zone.
Yeah.
Being in the zone is the best feeling. You could just kill every workout 100% and you want more. You're just like, yeah, let's do it. I'm so excited. Let's do this, And you get excited when you see these little progressions in your physique. Like, oh yeah, I can see an extra line in my abs today. Or like, wow, I dropped an inch, or, whatever the case may be. So seeing those little accomplishments are so exciting. And I think that's the great thing about being like fully in the zone. But the longer you can like extend your prep out so it's not as drastic, that pre-prep phase is great for just getting your feet wet. Like, let's get into this. Let's get used to it. The first few weeks are going to be a little tricky, but the sooner you can get in the zone, the better. Because then you're just going to sail and just like it's nothing and you're going to love it.
I think it's that routine thing you're talking about. It's like initiates the routine, and it's not as critical as when you're in prep to like have a little bit of getting used to, a little bit of mess ups here and there. So yeah, I love that. It's funny. I love when you're in the zone and you're like, you can see it, you're just like super amped up, ready to go, walking to Orange Theory, like doing your thing. Like it's cool to see because you like a switch like just flicks and you're there, and it's like it's pretty cool. Yeah.
And also when I'm so in the zone, I'm not as like hungry or craving. I'm not a person that craves a lot anyway or gets hungry that often, but I find like when I'm really in the zone, sometimes it's almost like hard to eat in a way.
Yeah.
Sometimes because it's like, oh man, I'm just so motivated. I just want to do cardio right now. Like, I'll just, I don't feel like eating right now. I just want to work out. Like, I don't know about you, but that's how I feel. Like sometimes it's just like, wow, I feel like I have more food when I'm in the zone, even though it's less food, if that makes sense. Because I'm more focused on like my goals, and at that point I'm kind of using food as like fuel, and that's it,
Yeah.
So it's like a good place to be. And usually I get there within like the last like 3 weeks or what, like fully. but the sooner I can get there, the better.
Yeah,
you know?
for sure. Yeah, no, I get there too when I'm, and just for me, it's like dieting, where I'm like, it's just normal and I don't really think of anything besides the food. So besides like the results, I'm just like, I just don't even care. Like there's like I don't know what happens at that phase, but I think a lot of people get there in prep where they just like, oh, it's just energy. Like it's not like I just got to do it.
Especially, like from show to show, I'm extremely like that too. I'm just like, I don't even want to eat. Even sometimes after the shows when we go out for
That's
cheat meals.
weird.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Like if I know I have like a show like in the next few weeks, I'm like, I'll whatever. I'm just, I'll have a salad or whatever. I don't feel like I'm missing out that much.
Yeah. Hey, that's good. I mean, it makes it easier. That's true. But it is funny because we'll be like a month out and you'll be like, nah, I'll just have a chicken salad. And and maybe you'll have like a piece of something I have or something. But it's like you never have. I mean, it's pretty rare where you have like a full on. And even when you do have a full on, you don't eat like most of it. You just I don't know. It's funny. But everyone else you go, you see them throw down, and it's like, you're going to pay for that tonight,
Right, yeah. I mean, I'm not going to say like I'm a perfect dieter either. I don't do a lot of cheat meals. Like you said, you can count on two hands the cheat meals I've had in the last like 2 years or whatever. But one thing I think, like if I'm too off season or too far away, I have a tendency to pick at things, like snack a little bit, like, oh look, Hugo left like goldfish out, let me just have a few. You know what I mean? That's when I'm like in the long off season. But yeah, I'm less likely to do that the closer I am to a show when I'm fully in the zone.
Yeah, so I think there's something about that, just keeping, like, staying consistent with competing too in the sport. And
that's why I was so afraid once the Olympia ended. I'm like, oh man, there's gonna be such a big gap. I don't want to go off the rails.
Because that was a huge gap. Because what is it, 4 months, 5 months? Since then?
I was afraid I was gonna lose my
motivation,
my zone, which I did a little bit. It's inevitable. You can't be like so like pumped every time, right? But yeah, for the most part, I think I held on pretty well through this off season. So
you're doing. You know what's funny is I would say this is probably like I was thinking the same thing would happen with all these competitors too. But like looking at like the top 10 at the Olympia, like all of them are doing pretty good.
Yeah.
They're all maintaining really well this year. I was like, dang, no one like took it off season. Like everyone looks pretty similar. Like I think like the worst is like 12 pounds up probably. Like if I'm looking at it visually, like I'm like, man, they're doing pretty good. Yeah, this off season. So
it's like so different from like, let's say the era of like 2015.
Yeah.
Like it was so common for girls to blow up in the off season, and I would say in a way encouraged a little bit. Because there was that mindset of bulking, which we've debunked that you should not be bulking, especially you bikini competitors in the off season. Don't need to bulk. Don't need to force feed yourself. But that was a very common thing, like back like 5 or 6 years ago. That was so common.
It was like
girls would look completely different in the in season versus the off season.
Yeah, it was like mandatory like back then. Everyone was like, no, you had to do it because you got to be in a caloric surplus to make gains, and people just go, like they would use that as an excuse to just eat whatever they wanted all the time. Like, oh, I'm gaining. I'm like, they'd be like eating a full pizza by themselves, like a bikini competitor. And they're like, well, I'm gaining, so I need the calories. And I'm like, you don't need that many calories. So like, just to clarify in the off season, guys, so there has never been an ounce of muscle gained because an ounce of fat was gained. Those two do not correlate. So the muscle is based because you're creating mechanical tension in the gym, and you're creating a stimulus for more amino acids to be synthesized at a very low amount. So as a rule of thumb, just to like give you guys like a rule of thumb, like the amount of amino acids someone can synthesize in a day, which is how you build muscle, is like 10 grams. Like 10 grams of amino acids a day. That's like doing really, really good too. So like we're talking on that like research group, it was like a guy who was average weight. So we're not talking 110-pound bikini competitor every single day is synthesizing 10 grams of amino acids. Unlikely. Probably like 5, 7, 6, something like that. So when you think about that, and let's just put that in calorie terms, right? Amino acids, so protein, if it's 10 grams of protein, right? Let's just say it's 10 grams of protein, that is 40 calories. That's how much you're synthesizing daily if you're killing it. If you're killing it. So do you need to eat a pizza to get 40 calories synthesized of protein? When you think about it in that terms, it's pretty ridiculous to even like, do you need to put on 2 pounds a week of weight to put on any muscle obviously, if you're only synthesizing 10 grams of amino acids a day, let's say for some reason you're a super freak and you put on 20 grams of amino acids a day, right? You're synthesizing, that's still only 80 calories. That's it. So like, no, you're not going to put on 2 pounds of muscle a week. So all these people who are like gaining a pound a week, like there's some freaks out there that might be able to put on like more than the average, especially in their initial newbie gain phase. But if you're like already doing shows and then you're trying to put on a pound, 2 pounds a week, especially for a female, like that's not going to happen. It's just not possible. So, you know, let's do the math on that. So if you're putting on 10 grams of amino acids a day, synthesizing amino acids, then you have 45 days, so 450 grams equals a pound. So that would mean 45 days to put on 1 pound of lean mass. So that's 6 weeks, you know. So it's not as fast as people think it is. You're not going to gain more muscle because you're gaining fat. It's just going to cause more dieting time. And what I like to do when I have like gaining now in the off season is, so I do a lot of measurements on people, you know, their waist, their hips. For guys, it's just their waist, their weight, pictures, all that. And what I like to do is I never will exchange a week of gaining for a week of cutting. So if they check in 1 week and their waistline is up, let's say 1/4 of an inch, and then the next week their waistline's up 1/4 of an inch, right? I'm like, look, every time we gain 1/4 of an inch a week on the waist, we're adding a week of dieting because it takes a week to get that 1/4 of an inch off. So it's not worth it. If you're gaining 6 months out of the year and you have to diet 6 months out of the year to get that off, well, just think about it just in those terms. Let's say you don't lose any more muscle during those 6 months of dieting. Let's say you don't lose any, which you will, but let's say you don't. Well, even just the fact that you're dieting for 6 months out of the year and gaining 6 months out of the year versus gaining for 9 months out of the year, being lean about it, and dieting for 3 months out of the year should be a net loss. So your net positive is being lean all the way through and barely gaining anything on the waistline, so you can gain for 9 months out of the year and get 3 months more progress than the other guy who's dieting 6 months out of the year. So that's just thinking of things strategically. That's how you get ahead, you know. And that's why I say be lean in the off season, because that way you can have 9-10 months of gaining and only 8 weeks of dieting a year, and then you're going to get farther ahead than that girl who goes way too far and has to diet for 8 months out of the year. So hopefully those numbers, everyone could stay with it. But that's a realistic, like the real set mentality of a modern day bodybuilder. That's it. And it's different now, you know. It's not luxury, eat whatever you want. You used to see Lee Priest eating like a bucket of chicken in the off season, and like he would get crazy big. There's a lot of them, but Lee Priest was like the famous one for it. Yeah. He was like, because he didn't care. Lee Priest is a total troll, so you know he doesn't care. He likes to just troll people and get reactions. You know, you love him or hate him. But he was famous for it. He'd be eating chicken, posting like not posting, but in magazines back then, he'd be eating a bucket of chicken and stuff. And like that's just how, you know, he did it. Was it the best way? I mean, I would argue that it's the best way, but it worked for him. But you got to remember too, those bodybuilders are taking a lot of different things that you're not going to be taking that allow them to kind of do a lot of different things with their body that you can't. So I guess that's my long and detailed stay lean in the off season.
Yeah, exactly. I have a question for you, Adam. So is there evidence that if you eat too much of one food that your body becomes accustomed to it or maybe develops an intolerance? And in the off season / pre-prep season, do you like to have your athletes kind of switch up their protein sources or their carb sources, their fat sources, just to kind of expose the body to a food that it hasn't had in a while so it doesn't become too used to one thing? So
that's funny that you said that, because there was one, and I'm trying to reference back to it, but there was one, like I don't know if it was a full study or they just did some research on it, where they gave athletes, it was NCAA athletes for 6-week periods. They gave them the same protein source only for 6 weeks in 2 different 6-week settings. One was just chicken and one was just turkey. They tested their food sensitivity to the chicken in the beginning of it and tested their food sensitivity at the end of those 6 weeks. Both of them. And at both of them on the 6-week marker, their sensitivity became a lot higher to that same food that they were either not sensitive to or mildly sensitive to or before. So they only took foods that they were either sensitive or, like if you were already really high, they wouldn't put you in that food, so you'd eat a different food. So it was either no sensitivity or mild sensitivity, and then all of them went to like mild to high, right? So yes, that kind of proved the point. I mean, it's not, I wouldn't say it's like I got to look it up again. I haven't seen that in forever, but it proved the point that switching up your proteins is important. Because if you're eating the same thing all the time, always, you're going to have a little bit more of a sensitivity to it. Now,
and just to cut you off for a second, when we say sensitivity, we're not saying allergy.
No.
We're not saying you're going to burst out in hives, your throat is going to close, but we mean like maybe some inflammation, some bloating, distension, digestive issues, things like that.
Yeah, overall gut health type of thing. So like that's something that, yes, you should be switching up your protein. So like on my meal plans, it'll say like lean protein, and it'll have like, I don't know, 8 different options or something. And ideally, people would be switching, having fun with it, switching it around. It's not really just for luxury to have those items like all different, but it's because of that buildup that you can get. Now, if they're switching their proteins all the way through prep, and then they're having like that's how you're going to get like a smaller waistline too, because you're trying to keep the intolerances down, keep the sensitivity down. So yeah, and what we're doing is like you have a lot of just inflammation from what we're doing. HIIT cardio, working out really hard, like stressing your body out, like that's like not the best environment for you to be like just like not have any inflammation and be rested and not have any water retention. It's not the most ideal thing. And that's why I say, if we can get you to the stage of your peak week not needing much at all, just having a very basic peak week. In my peak weeks, if I can get them there, they're very basic. There's nothing crazy going on in my peak weeks at all. They're very little difference between them. It's just like, oh, you get 120 carbs, you get 200 carbs. Like it's not anything crazy. And because it's predictable that way. But you got to understand, because they got all the way there and they're 1 week out, they were lean enough, and maybe even too lean, which is the goal, like that 1 week out marker, and then we just fill them out, and all they do is not do cardio and rest and let their body recover and let their inflammation go down. Yes, of course they look tighter, because now they're not doing all this crazy stuff that last week. Their water retention goes down, their waistline goes down, they feel rested, they look vibrant on stage. And that's what the judges always want. They like just they always say, have it look like she just woke up and walked out of the house that day, and that's how she looks. Like she shouldn't look like she's dying through prep on stage just trying to hold herself up because she's so dehydrated, Right. Like that's how they always explain it that way. It's a fitness model contest. Have them look vibrant and alive and healthy and this. So that last week, you could really make a difference on that side of it. And that's where that's where I like to focus. Not every prep's going to go that way. Sometimes we're going through crazy aggressive peak weeks because we have to. But yeah, that's another reason for the right off season and preps and pre-preps. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's so much easier on your mind to have like one of those scenarios where you're already a little bit too lean and you just kind of have to fill out, rather than it be the other way around. Yeah. Just trying to like do everything you can just to get a little bit tighter. It's just not a good place to be when it comes to like stress, and then stress sometimes can cause those kind of situations where you might hold water, or you're just not mentally there because you're so worried about like your show that week. But I think another important thing to mention as well when it comes to this pre-prep phase and just like easing into your prep earlier than later is like, especially for like the newcomers or the people that haven't competed a lot, or if at all, is like learning your body, because that's super important. Yeah. Like you're going to learn what foods aren't suitable for your body. Like, maybe you try yogurt and it causes you just a really upset stomach, or you notice that if you eat a certain food, you hold water, what workouts are good for you, what ones aren't, and diet as well. Like even the type of dieting, because although your body might be okay to accept a certain diet, maybe your lifestyle doesn't. For example, if you're a working nurse and you're on your feet all the time, and you gotta figure these things out, which diet is suitable for your lifestyle and for your body, and just getting to know your body in general. Like I have the luxury, I've competed so often that I know my body pretty good. Yeah. So like I know that a lot of people don't have that same kind of luxury, and they're still getting to know their body and what reacts to it, what doesn't, and what works best. Yeah, it's tough. And you need that. The problem is you need it sucks it's rare that the coaches kind of absolutely nail it their first time. And you see it even when you'll see it happen a lot when an athlete will go to one coach to another coach or whatever, and they're bouncing a lot. Like you look at Ramy is a perfect example of it. He was bouncing around a lot. He could never nail it. And finally he figured out a package that worked. And but it took him 7 years of it was so frustrating seeing Ramy. It was so frustrating because I was like, why does he keep
spilling over? Why does he keep trying to fill out? He doesn't need to be so big. Like, he's already the biggest guy. Like, it seemed like common sense, right? But when you're there, it doesn't, you don't know what he's doing. So he's probably I'm sure that with all the people that said that same exact thing, RX muscle, everyone said, why is he trying to fill out? Like, it's crazy. He's already too big. So like, he was obviously not doing that, because after year 2, he heard it from everyone, right? So there was still something that needed to click, something, whether it was in his diet, whether it was in his stress, whether it was whatever, something needed to click. And then you saw what happened when it finally clicked. He started bringing a better package, but it takes time, you know?
Right.
Maybe the whole time he just liked potatoes, and he was eating potatoes for his reloads. And then coach one day said, hey, why don't you try rice? Maybe that'll work better for you, you know? So like, everyone has their differences. And that's the thing, is like, the athlete is going to be a big part of it. And I think that everyone needs to have like their part of it, because the athlete's always going to know their like foods better than the coach is going to know, because they're in their body, right? So like, some athletes will be like, hey, I just don't do very good with potatoes. I just do better with rice. There's no reason why someone would do better with potatoes than rice. Like, on paper, it's like, oh, they're both clean carbs. You should be able to reload with both of them, no problem. But if you notice something about yourself, and maybe just try it out, you know, when you're lean enough to see it. One day for your carbs, just do potatoes, see how it looks. Maybe you look tighter the next day, maybe it's good for you. Maybe then the next day do like a rice the next time you do it. Maybe that's better for you. Like, so you can kind of figure these things out, because it does take some guesswork out, and it eliminates like one of those things that might not be good for you. So that's another thing you should pay attention to: foods. How does your waistline go when you eat eggs? Some people get really inflamed. I had one girl one time, we couldn't figure it out. We couldn't figure it out at all. It was crazy. And I was like, everything we're doing is right. Like, I'm like, everything we're doing is right. What are you eating? And like, finally we're like, what are you eating for your vegetables? And she was like, cucumbers. And I was like, okay, let's figure this out. Like, everything else is perfect. So we found out that the cucumber peel, because she was eating so many, was what was causing it. So she peeled her cucumbers, and then all of a sudden her gut was good again, and her stomach wasn't distended. And she was like, I'm like, but how? That's so crazy. Like, but she was like, yeah. And then because she even said, she was like, she said, maybe I'm eating too many cucumbers. And I was like, no, it can't be you're eating too many cucumbers, right? Like, as her vegetable. And so I'm like, why don't you just stop eating your cucumbers, right? So we stopped eating cucumbers, and then what do you know? Everything went good. And then I kind of looked into it, and I found that the peel was actually caused a lot of people a little bit of stress. So I'm like, why don't you try peeling them? See if that works. Yep. Next thing you know, perfect. Right. So like, little things like that, like the more preps you do, the more you pay attention to your foods, the more you can eliminate it. And it's really hard. It's really difficult for your coach to figure that out, because they're not living inside. They don't know the reactions that you're having, you know? So I have some weird, what people will say things like the weirdest things. It doesn't make really sense, but I'm like, hey, if that's what's happening with you when you eat that food, then don't eat it. You know what I mean? Like, especially in prep, eat it off season, whatever. But during prep, like, let's just be smart and eliminate just in case. But there's weird ones, man, that don't make any sense at all. But I'll get rice people can't reload with rice. I'm like, why? Like, I just don't do good with rice. Right? It's so, I'll have some weirdest ones. Like, some people will say, I had a couple people say rice, 2 people at least, maybe more, say rice cakes. They could do rice, but not rice cakes. I was like, why? Why would that be any different? You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't make much sense. But hey, they're seeing it. Yeah. I'm sure they're feeling it. I can't convince them otherwise. Yeah. So just get rid of it. Who cares? What does it hurt to just not do it?
I know. So, and the same thing goes for like exercises too. Maybe it takes a while for you to figure out which ones are more beneficial for what muscle group you're trying to work. Because I know that, like, for example, let's take the basic squat. Some girls are very quad dominant, and they don't want to work their quads more than they need to. And this is probably more specifically geared towards bikini, where they don't want quads, right? Or don't want big quads, I should clarify. Some girls say, oh, no, can't do squats. No, because no matter what, I'm going to feel it in my quad and my quad only. And it's funny because we all kind of feel different exercises in different places. Yeah. And sometimes it doesn't, and you're just like, how do you feel it there when you're doing this exercise? Yeah. But it's just making that like connection, the mind to muscle connection. But sometimes it's just some muscle groups just take over an exercise, especially if it's like a compound movement or whatever. And then you're just like, well, now I know, probably shouldn't do that one. Like if you're doing like squats and you find, oh my gosh, I'm sore the next day, my quads, only quads, you know, and I don't want to work my quads any more than they're already worked, then maybe that exercise isn't for you and you need to find another one.
Yeah, and I think that's a thing too, because I'll get that a lot with upper glutes is probably the most common one I'll run into. I would say upper glutes is the most common one, where there's this huge variance of people who can feel it a lot and then not feel it at all. And I'll have people doing like hip thrusts and glute bridges and kickbacks and all these things and still not feel it. And it's like, I just tell them, hey, try a bunch of different glute exercises. Wherever you feel it the most likely, that's where you're having the highest activation. Like that's a pretty easy way of figuring it out. Just try a bunch of them. Try 10 exercises. Whatever one you feel the most, let's do those. That's your mind to muscle connection, and that specific exercise is the best for your upper glute, whatever. I run into that a lot. So if you're one of those girls that are having problems getting your upper glute, or whatever, a guy trying to get your upper chest, whatever, like try a bunch of different things and then report it back to your coach. Hey, when I did this, I felt it a lot more in my glute. It shouldn't, like based on like kinesiology and biomechanics and all that, it shouldn't be that dramatic from person to person. It's still using the same thing to lift, right? But it does make, it's like when you're trying to fine tune someone, it does make a difference. And I've tested this with sensors too, with people having like the sensors on them and seeing, I'm like, okay, this, and I used to be really like, I always say this too, I used to be such a like scientist guy, which I still am. I'm still really into that. But I used to be so into it, but I'm like, yeah, right, this girl thinks that when she does this exercise, she's gonna work more. I'm like, yeah, right, it doesn't work that way. Always be like, oh yeah, right, I already know what's gonna happen, right? But then you put the sensors on her and she shows activation like through the roof with the exercises she thought worked best for her. And then the ones I thought would work best for her would be like 50% of that. And I'm like, she proved me wrong, like, because it's not everything, like everyone is different, I don't know how she's built on the inside, how structurally, how mechanically, like her nervous system's recruiting and how her brain's sending signals to muscles. Like it's all different for people. So yeah, feel it out, feel the muscles, try different exercises. Where you feel it the most, it's probably doing the most. So
right, exactly. And I think that's such a thing that a lot of people don't even realize, is that different people feel the exercises in different places. And although they can try their best to kind of make it work for them, sometimes doesn't. And I know that isn't Anya's going to see somebody for like mobility? Yeah. It could be another issue too. It can activate because of a mobility issue or whatever. Yeah,
she was having issues recruiting. Like she was doing really good glute recruitment before, and her glutes were like, when she was an amateur to turn pro, her glutes were, I think it was 1.5 to 2 inches bigger than when she started competing as a pro. Like all of a sudden, she took a few weeks off of like working out. It was like, I want to say it was like she took like 6 weeks of like not being very serious, like after she got a pro card or whatever. And then she started again being serious, and then it just wasn't getting the activation. And she didn't know why, and I didn't know why. And then she got adjusted one day, and then the next day she had like great activation. And I was like, that's weird. I don't understand what would have happened in that time frame that would have just like slowed the activation. She's like, I just don't feel it. So then it kept degressing, and then she would, or regressing, and then she would get adjusted again, and then it got better. And then, so now she's just regularly doing it, and now her glutes are back up to where they were. Yeah, she's actually I think she's exactly where she was. She's actually, it might be a little bit bigger now, but she's off season too. So, but yeah, and now she's getting good recruitment out of it when she feels it. So yeah, I mean, that just tells you too, like your kinetic chain, your structural alignment has a lot to do with how you're going to recruit differently than someone else, Like you have a real extreme anterior tilt. So yeah, of course it's different with your different exercises. Of course, when we do, glute bridges and stuff, your back is already like super, super tense because it's already in that tightened, flexed position, So that's the thing that we have to watch out with you, is like we can't do too much glute bridge stuff because then your back is already
my lower
flexed.
back starts to get really tight.
Yeah, she's got we call it an anterior pelvic tilt, and it's like, it's real extreme, her anterior tilt.
Which is basically an arch in your back.
Think of sticking your butt out a lot. Like if you were trying to stick your butt out, that's how she naturally is, like her structure. So if you look at her for like when she's standing on the side, it looks like she's got like a little tummy at the bottom because her back goes so far that it's like round at the bottom because it goes so far.
But I'm like, that's just the way I felt. Like if I eat or drink even a little bit, you can see that little pop out from my lower stomach. While I see other girls that are more like tucked in, their posture is more like a tucked in, and like they can eat like a half pizza and nothing's still looks the same. I'm like, wow.
Yeah. So with her, she has so when that happens, you have this like, so an anterior pelvic tilt, like you got to think of the muscle groups that are getting tightened and being stretched with that. So for her in that position, her abs are being stretched because they're they're stretched out from the back flexing, and then the lower back is flexed. It's in a flex state. So when she does exercises like glute bridges, her back is already really flexed, and so it's causing more stress, and it gets even tighter. So like that's a common thing that would cause, actually, which is funny, you're kind of an anomaly, because when you have someone that's like that, usually in that scenario, because you got to think your lower back is flexed, usually your glutes are elongated and your hamstrings are also elongated, so they're less likely to get the same amount of tension if they were in the proper postural alignment. So because your glutes are stretched, your hamstrings are stretched, they shouldn't be getting the activation that they get, at least less than their potential, because they're in a stretched state when you're going into the exercise. But then you have really good glutes, really good hamstrings. Is that crazy?
Strange, though, I will say what is really strange, and I know it's like contradictory to that as well. The most flexible body part is my hamstrings. You know what I mean? But that might be because like I was a hurdler, right? So we do hurdling stretches all the time. I can basically, put my face on my knee.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm thinking that people with that tilt would be very stiff in their hamstring too, correct? Or am I thinking something opposite? Am I thinking the opposite way? Because my quads aren't flexible.
They'd be already, well, that would make more sense because they're already stretched. So because your lower back is already stretched, so it's already elongated a little bit, that would mean that the counter muscle group would be a little bit more in a flex state. Oh. So like, for example, when you're in that like arched position, your hip flexors are a little tighter.
Oh yeah, they are.
Because you're more like that, So that would mean your quad would also be in that side position too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm not weird. Okay.
No, well, your structure is actually weird, and a lot of people have that. So like that's another thing we can go into one day, like postural alignment and setting yourself properly for exercise, because all that stuff matters. How you get that signal from your brain to your muscle has to go down a clean line of impulse, right? And if you're going through this weird chain of postural alignment that's not exactly where it should be, of course you're not going to get the best neuromuscular activity, because there's a little bit of kinks in the wire getting all the way down, right, so to speak. So so different exercises are going to be different for different people, based on a lot of different factors, one of them being postural alignment. So I guess that's a whole nother topic, right? But I do like what's funny is that one thing that really has kind of made me a little bit more, we're sweet and sour, made me a little bit more sour, is that the modern day coach and trainer has kind of lost the art of training. And I'm like, and they're all like, a lot of them become just nutritionists, like I'm just a nutrition coach. I don't really like the training. I don't like that part. Like I love that part. Like I started with that part, right. So I definitely specialize in that part too. But I really do like that whole thing, the body, the kinesiology behind it, like, correcting a muscle and, postural alignments and things like that. Like I really like that part of it. And I think that's kind of a lost art in your modern day, like Instagram coach too. They just lift hard, man. Just lift harder than whatever. But they don't like pay attention to the art of lifting. Like, and that's its own art form, I think it's a beautiful thing. You can see some guys have really just only done that. Like you look at like Charles Glass, he's pretty much only gone that way, but he's like the highest level of that, which it kind of requires to really go into it. But I think you should be well-rounded as a coach, and like you should know how to look at the body and look at the exercise and come up with the best thing for him. And I think that is something that if you're a coach out there and you're just doing the nutrition, like study the art form, man. Like study the art form of the body. It'll make you better in whole on how to get the athlete to the end. So that is something. It's weird, right? It was just that, and now it's like not even.
It's probably because it's easier, I think, for coaches to do just nutrition. You can do it without spending a lot of time with the client. Whereas when it comes to checking the form and picking particular exercises for that client, it takes more time. You got to almost be with them in person too, I would say. Yeah. You know what I mean? And yeah, it's just, I guess, whole another world you have to learn. Whereas you can do a whole bunch of nutrition, but to really nail down somebody's like training routine is something else. Yeah, the training routine thing, I like, you can see someone, when I see someone's pictures, it's super simple. And that's why I do like a lot of those physique assessments, which honestly, I do too many of them. I'm probably going to turn it off pretty soon. It's just time consuming. But when I see someone's physique, I could look at it and I could say, you need this, create a routine. And then, I don't know, there's just something in that like is rewarding in it, where like you could be like,
because most people will do a physique assessment or they'll come in, they'll do a scan, whatever, and they just have no idea of what they should be doing in the routine in their split. They just do the typical bodybuilding splits. I can't tell you how many bikini competitors I get coming in here doing chest twice a week. I'm like, why are you wasting time doing chest twice a week? You're a bikini competitor. Do you want jacked pecs? Is that the goal?
Yes.
Like you want pec separation?
I've been begging you for years to
like,
do a chest workout with me. Do pecs.
It's like it's so it doesn't make any sense. It's like saying, oh, I want to work this hand muscle here because I want that. I'm going to spend a whole day on my toe muscle, because I'm not going to ever be judged by it, and the judges, you know what I mean? I'm going to waste a whole workout session on the muscle that no one's ever going to see. Like just on my soleus, like just here, just right here. That's what I'm going to work. It's just so, it doesn't make any sense at all. Like I'm doing it just doesn't make any sense. I don't get it. I don't understand. So, but yeah, so you should look at your physique. And this is a good thing for the pre-prep too. You should look at your physique, say, okay, what do I got to work on? What do I have time left to improve with a little bit of extra calories that I have, and really target that area and target it for a period of time, People a lot of times will want to go through and like, I want to change my workout every week. I'm like, that's not how you do like progression, right? It's like stick to the same exercises for a period of time in a format where you're going to target the lagging body parts to a higher amount to bring your body up to balance and symmetry as fast as you can. That's the goal in the pre-prep and the off season. So, and even in season too. But it's, I don't know. I do like that part of it because it's such a critical part of it. Nutrition's not going to do that part for you. Like you need to have the programming. It needs to be there. Like you need to say, hey, this is how my breakdown is. This is what I'm going to focus on for 16 weeks, 12 weeks of this format, whatever. And then at the end of those 12, 16 weeks, assess again, new workout, whatever. But yeah, there's my rant.
There's the rant. There it is.
It's got to be one an episode. So anything you got to add here, Ash?
Just in summary, make it easier on yourself and, treat your body right by allowing yourself a healthy and not too crazy off season. Yeah. That's the way I like to put it in my mind is like when I'm in the off season and when I'm just transitioning into the in season contest prep kind of zone, I don't want to I never let myself get too much over my contest weight because it's like my body worked so hard. I worked so hard for this. My body has treated me so right. And I'm so grateful to, be in the position I am. I don't want to just throw it away or make it harder on my body that's been working so hard for me. So I make it easy on myself. Yeah. And I try not to let myself get too crazy in the off season. So that way, when I do contest prep, it isn't that big of a shock to my body. My body isn't going to hate me for it. Yeah.
So, well, there you go. From one of the best in the world, most winning bikini pro ever.
That's me again.
With that, stay lean, stay not mean, stay nice. And we'll talk to you guys next time. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Bye.